Hey guys, Becky here, FiveTwoBaker. Welcome back. So this week we are working on some beautiful springtime daffodils. I didn't use any botanically correct veiners or cutters, so if you don't have them, don't worry. Most of this we are doing mostly freehand using some generic tools. I think they came out super cute, so let's get right to it. So start by grabbing a chunk of flower paste, whatever color you're going to use for the trumpet part. Roll it into an oblong shape, and then using any tool you have, even if it's just the end of a paintbrush, go ahead and poke a hole in the center nearly all the way through so that you can start scoring some veins inside. To score the veins, I'm using a Dresden tool, and I'm going very lightly. I don't want to do anything too deep right now. Then with the small rolling ball tool, go ahead and put it back inside of the trumpet to form the very center of it, and then pop it on your finger. Once it's on your finger, go ahead and using the same Dresden tool, score from top to bottom or from bottom to top, depending on how you're looking at it, to get more of that trumpet shape, more of the ruffle, and more of the vein. Go light at what would be the top of your finger and go harder on the bottom. But if that doesn't give you enough ruffle, then go ahead and cup it the way I have here, and then continue to do it, bending the flower paste over your finger so that you get more of an open, ruffly trumpet shape. If it tears, that's totally fine too, because it just looks more natural and gives more of that ruffle effect. Once you're done with this part, go ahead and clean up any of the outside or the inside that you need to. Poke a hole at the bottom of your trumpet where the very round part is, because that's where your carrier wire will go later. And then place it back on your rolling ball tool and set it off to dry a bit in the end. Now for each of the daffodil petals, I don't have a correct cutter, so what I'm going to do is sandwich my paste in between a Ziploc bag. So there's a Ziploc bag on each side, and then I go ahead and roll it a little bit thicker than I normally would for any of my petals so that I have enough paste to stretch out later. I leave it even thicker in the very bottom center so that I can put my wire through there later as well. To cut this, I'm going to use the guide of a dahlia cutter because it's about the shape that I need. Then sandwiching it again in my Ziploc bag, I'm going to use my fingers to stretch it out in the shape that I want. It's kind of like a diamond shape with it being wider at the top and thinner at the bottom. That's about the shape of a daffodil petal. Once I'm happy with it, then I go ahead and I take my 26 gauge wire, dip it in some edible glue, and I'll run it down the center about a quarter of the way through the petal. I'll go ahead and make 6 petals in total for one flower. The veiner that I'm using for this is just a rose veiner that I had laying around, but you can use any generic veiner that you have or not at all. Go ahead and lay it to dry. And now moving on to the center, I'm going to use a carrier wire for my pistil. And the first thing I'm going to do is measure it. See how big I want it, and I don't want it to stick out further than the trumpet. Using a little bit of gum paste, I go ahead and first dip my carrier wire, which is about 18 gauge by the way, into some edible glue, and then I put my gum paste on top. Roll it out so that it's a little thicker at the base, goes thinner up to the top, and then has just enough chunk at the very top to make a little well for the top of my pistil. Once I have this to my liking, the next thing that I'm going to do is get ready to color it. Now to color it, the top of my pistil, I'm going to add some yellow petal dust and then just drag it down the base so that it blends in. The trumpet of my daffodil is a little brighter than I expected, so I'm using this dull yellow to tone the color down just a little bit, but also catch the veins that I put on there so that they're more prominent. Once I'm happy with that color, what I'm going to do is add some bright orange to the very outside of my trumpet, and I do that by taking my brush, dipping the most color on the very edge of that frill, and then pulling it in with my brush. I pull it in more on some parts and less on others, just so that it doesn't all look the same. And I do that for both the front and the back of the frilly part of my trumpet. Now I'm going to use some green on the bottom of my pistil, starting at the bottom and dragging it to the top so that it fades. And because I'm feeling a little extra, I'm also going to put it at the bottom of each petal, starting at the bottom and dragging it up, just going very little up the top. Do that for all of my petals. And now I'll move on to making the rest of the center. Now for the stamen parts, I'm going to go ahead and just use some store-bought stamens. I measure them to make sure they're about the height of my pistil, and I cut off 5 of them. Then I go ahead and add some edible glue to the bottom of my pistil, and I attach each one by just pressing it against the pistil, making sure that there's glue all around it. I go ahead and I arrange them however it is that I think looks best. And then I start adding more edible glue at the very bottom so that I can pop it right into my trumpet. I want to add a generous amount of glue to make sure that it sticks because this is holding a lot. Once it's inside my trumpet, I go ahead and flip it upside down to give it some time to set and dry so it's not wobbly. Once it's all set, I go ahead and at the very base of my trumpet, I wrap around some green floral wire and I add 3 petals at a time. My first 3 are my center 3, and then in between each of those, I will go ahead and add another petal to make it a total of 6 petals for the daffodil. And that's it. There's nothing else to it. You can pop it on your cake or add some leaves to it, but I'm super happy with how it came out, so I hope you guys give it a try also. Here they go again, guys. As always, if you have any questions on these, do drop them down in the comments below and I'll make sure to get back to you. If you enjoyed this tutorial and found it helpful, please do give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. I would super appreciate that. And I will see you guys for the next tutorial.